So it's October right now.
It is.
Maybe not when you're listening, but when we're recording, it's October.
Right.
And I have a question for you. What is the least scary movie monster that has significant traction when it comes to pop culture?
Oh, wow. The least
scary. I've got one in the back of my mind, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
You know, I've never had the clown phobia or anything, so like it never really
Doesn't do anything for
really
you.
do anything. But I get it. It does for many people.
I've not seen it, so maybe it would change my opinion. But I've never found clowns to be very scary.
Yeah. We're talking about the movie, or we're talking about just the actual.
You can go as far as trope.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a specific movie.
I'm not a big horror guy, so.
I'll tell you mine right out of the gate. Anything that is dead that was living, not that scary.
Was that like zombies?
So zombies, what are they? They are just people that are in worse shape than I am. I'm a living people. I have the ability to build my body, and I have arthritis, and I've got a torn up knee. I can't imagine that you add on decay, and that's going to make me more fearsome in death. A skeleton?
Yeah.
I'm a skeleton.
Right.
I'm a skeleton with meat on it. Back up.
You got armor. That's a good point. I mean, I think maybe the only piece I could see here being an advantage to them is they're undead, right?
So they don't feel anything?
They don't feel any pain, or they could live forever.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Then the last one I think that really irritates me is ghosts.
Yeah.
Ghosts always get the luxury of being this amazing creature that can do all these phenomenal things. You know what ghosts would really do? They would wait for you to watch something interesting on Netflix, and they'd probably watch you poop.
Yep. Girls' shower room probably stuff, but
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yep. Nasty ghosts.
Deplorable.
You are listening to the Soapbox. I'm Paul.
And I'm Eric.
This all started out with a list. What's that all about?
So I've compiled a list over the years of things that just bother me, things that grind my gears. And I shared that list with you.
And I thought, you know what? That would make interesting conversation. Sometimes I'm going to want to agree with you, and it's just going to be something we talk about. Other times, though, I'm going to want to steel man the opposite position because I think that's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm always right, but Paul's just a really good debater.
Hey.
So, time travel. Is it deterministic?
All right, so that's a fancy college word there, deterministic. For about half of my friends, we're going to have to define that one. But basically, you're asking me time travel. Does it affect things downstream or not? Does that encapsulate it?
Kind of the gist, at least the way I'm using it. Maybe I'm misusing it. I don't know. It's our podcast, right?
Language is whatever language is.
Right.
Okay, did you just assume my nouns?
Did you? Yeah, I'm going to misuse the word literally, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Figuratively speaking.
Right. Yeah, so.
Time travel.
I don't know.
This is an interesting one because this touches on something that I think is maybe another one of your top three. Getting into free will a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
a little foreshadowing.
Yeah. So first of all, is time travel real? Is it possible? Let's start there.
Yeah.
I have heard of experiments that have demonstrated time travel where they've moved something approaching the speed of light and then brought it back, and they had a clock on board or something, and it was relative, right?
Yeah.
The experience of time for that thing that was moving very, very quickly was different than the experience of time that the rest of us have. And if you go into like the Einstein idea of relativity, that is one of the features of time when time is seen as like a continuum between space and time, right? So it's theoretically, I guess it is possible. I am an armchair physicist. I have very little understanding of the math that makes all that work, but it seems plausible in one direction.
Yeah. And I dare say, looking at both of our degrees, figuratively hanging on the wall, let's make this a little more fluffy. I'm thinking more, let's think about time travel in pop culture or, movies.
Way better. I have studied that much, much more deeply. One
of my favorite genres for movies is time travel. Or TV or any of it. I love time travel stories. I really don't need to read much in the description or look at the number of tomatoes or whatever on the thing, and I go time travel, I'm in.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed a lot of them.
Do you have a go-to favorite?
Well, I will say for our conversation, my favorite absolute favorite time travel movie was 12 Monkeys, which they made a TV show about, which kind of challenged the thing I loved about it the most. But sticking with just the movie, it has a premise that you can go back in time, but if you do...
Spoiler.
We should probably say spoiler. Spoiler. All right. Go watch the movie, then come back. Here, we'll wait.
That's right. You're not allowed to talk about a movie until it's been out of theaters for 20 years.
Right. So the premise here is you can go back in time, but you already did.
So in that sense, going back to that word deterministic, it was deterministic right out of the gate.
Yeah.
If time travel were possible, then it was always possible. And if anybody would eventually travel back in time, they already did.
Yeah. Which is a really fascinating premise. And of course, it falls apart once somebody's aware of it. And, it clearly has some holes because you could obviously, game the system and
in what way? If it's deterministic, how could you game that?
Well, I guess I'm thinking in the sense that if you knew that you already went back and you remembered you already going back, and this kind of happens in Bruce Willis's story, his character story. Well, what if you did something different that, you forcibly like, well, I remember he went back in time and kicked this ball. Well, I'm going to go hide the ball.
Right.
And then he couldn't have done it. But then it kind of gets in a loop because if you do that, then you already did that.
Then you have no memory of hiding the ball.
Or even, and
now the ball's back.
Right. And I think that's kind of what they play on in 12 Monkeys. It's they kind of have this like foggy flashback scenes of all this and their age differences of the characters. And but it really has an interesting way of telling the story to where you didn't really know what was happening in the past when it happened. But then in the future, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. That, to me, is a little bit like one of my two favorite time travel movies. And I'm going to cheat because when I say two, I actually mean 4, 5. Because Back to the Future. Back to the Future, to me, is just one continual story. So we'll just say Back to the Future. Yeah. I think there's 3 of them, right?
Yep.
Really, I just like the first one. The other 2, I could care less about. But... that's one framing of time travel, and that's the notion that if you have knowledge of the past or the future, you can change the past or the future, and it will change.
Yeah.
And you are an agent not affected by time travel, maybe because you're outside of that dimension when the change occurs, so that when you're placed back into that timeline or that stream or however you want to characterize it, you now possess unique knowledge compared with everything else around you, and you affect outcomes.
But now, physically, though, there was a part where Marty did something in the past to have his parents not meet, and then he was disappearing.
Didn't exist. So, maybe there's a delay.
There's
a convenient movie delay.
Back to the Future, I love the Back to the Future series. I actually enjoyed the 2 and 3, but the 1 was really was a pretty close, perfect movie. What is it? Twin Pines.
Yeah, which became Lonely Pine.
Lone Pine or whatever. Just full of really interesting things. But okay, continue. Sorry.
So then the other one, more closely, I think, in terms of the mechanics of how time travel is supposed to work in relation to your favorite there, Donnie Darko.
Oh.
So Donnie Darko is basically... he's killed by this freak accident where an airplane engine...
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
We'll cut and paste that.
Sorry, do better.
Do better.
he gets killed by a freak accident.
Right.
But because of some anomaly, he's given the opportunity to go back in time and then live the month or so leading up to that event happening. And as he does, lots of other weird things happen, and it's very... artsy and it's very ethereal. It's got a lot of weird sort of nuance and a lot of questions that get set up that don't have answers, and it's fun to think about and speculate, which all gets ruined with the movie Samantha Darko.
Oh, okay.
But taking sequels off the table,
yeah,
he's faced with a choice. Does he allow himself to be taken out of the equation so that the things that were going to transpire anyway would happen, and the wrongs that occurred as the result of him going back would be righted again? So there's the death of somebody that shouldn't have happened, and several other events that weren't good, and all by just allowing himself to be taken out. None of the bad things happen.
Right.
And so it's deterministic with an element of choice and free will, because he's sort of allowed to see the consequence of things not happening as they should. And because of that, he makes the moral choice, the hard choice, but the choice exists. And I think one of your favorite exercises when it comes to this topic of determinism and free will in general is the time travel argument, right?
Absolutely.
If you could travel back in time, this morning I chose to wear a very Canadian looking ensemble here. I've got my blue jeans and I've got my flannel.
Goes well with your single black glove that you're wearing.
Okay. Do we need to talk about the black glove?
I mean,
I'm wearing one latex black glove. Yesterday I took apart a computer for somebody, and on the inside it was razor sharp, and I cut 4 fingers. And so today I've taken all my bandages off. It's very difficult to have 4 bandages on your hand. And I've just replaced it with one black latex glove. But I'm sure some people think I'm a germaphobe. Other people think I'm a very bad Michael Jackson impersonator. Yeah, I do have the black glove.
Paul has an ouchie.
Yeah, 4 ouchies.
So, yeah. Did you finish your thought?
I can't remember now. The black glove was really, it does command attention.
Right. You chose your fit for the day.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got my Canadian ensemble here. Thank you for getting me back on track. If I could time travel, or if I was put back in this same situation with the same starting circumstances, all the same starting conditions, would there be a chance that I would possibly go for the black polo instead, my other favorite thing to wear?
Yeah.
And your argument is, all other things the same, the choice would always have the same outcome.
Right.
Therefore, there is no choice.
Yeah. And let's let the audience know that we're going to do an episode on free will. We have to. It's something I love to talk about. It's something you and I can kind of spar about, and that'll be a great one. Look for that coming up soon.
Yeah, but this topic has one key difference to that conversation, and that is
magic. Oh, wait. No, what?
Knowledge, right?
Yeah. No, and maybe I'm going to say what you were thinking. You go back in time to choose your outfit again. Can I call it an outfit?
Yeah, ensemble.
The kids call it a fit today.
Fit.
You go back and you have another chance to choose your fit. Yes, you're right. Now you have knowledge. I mean, you lived a whole day, presumably, and you went back. So, yeah, from my point of view, determinism, free will, even free will being an illusion, yeah, you could choose something else because you've lived a different experience.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm using choose in the sense
with air quotes,
right?
Yeah. Again, we'll have to get into that. So, determinism in time travel. One characteristic of time travel that I think I'm aware of is that with the whole idea of relativity, things can experience time at different intervals, but I don't think there's anything to suggest that time can ever go backwards. Only that certain things can move forwards at a faster or slower rate.
That's probably like kind of the most sciencey version of it. Yeah.
So I would say there's to me 2 plausible time travels where I could say, you know what, I'm on board with this. I think this could actually be a real thing. I think that the movie idea is great, but practical application time. One, time travel has already been invented, but people can only go forward, so we'll never know.
Right.
Or maybe only things that can travel at a certain speed that are not biological in nature and wouldn't be affected by those velocities could travel forward, and so maybe only information can move forward.
Yeah.
But then the other one, which is way more fun to think about, is maybe time travel is plausible in both directions, but nobody's got the space part right. And there's a bunch of time travelers that are floating where the Earth was as the universal expansion and the movement of the planet weren't accounted for.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the guys that are smart enough to invent time travel couldn't possibly think of, you know, astral projection.
Right. That's some tough math. Yeah, there's a funny little cartoon about making a wish. I wish to go to where I was born, and are you sure? And he's floating up in space. He's like, yeah, the Earth was here when you were born.
Yep.
It's not here now. Whoops. No, yeah, and that's I guess why the science fiction version of this is so much more fun, because you get a lot more. And similar to something you were just saying, Quantum Leap.
Oh, I always that one. I loved that one.
That was a TV show. I don't think we even did a spoiler alert. I guess they
circa the 1980s.
Yeah, and then they did a reboot of it, or a continuation. I don't know if it got canceled or not. I started it, but this premise is neat because basically the main character, Sam Beckett, right? Dr. Sam Beckett is going back in time to fix. He's actually just like
his consciousness is going back in time, but not his physical presence.
Right, but he's stuck in kind of these leaps, and every time he's got to fix what he broke,
or what was broken.
What was broken,
not necessarily something he was involved with, but his And it's sort of like there's a little bit of a spiritual premise to that one. There's a little bit of a karma idea there that maybe he's got to do enough good that he can account for the wrongs and maybe leap back to where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be.
Right.
But it doesn't break a lot of the physical limitations because it's the consciousness that's shifting.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of the consequences don't have that butterfly effect.
Right.
And the butterfly effect is fascinating to me because you think about, oh, well, what if I went back in time and I ate the wrong muffin and there wasn't enough muffins and somebody didn't get the nutrition they needed and then I accidentally killed my grandfather, right?
Yeah.
So we think about the long-standing consequences of the most inconsequential actions. But then we live our day-to-day lives as if none of the things that we do matter.
Right.
And the future doesn't seem to have any bearing at all on the present unless it were a time travel situation, and then all things matter infinitely. And I wonder if actual reality isn't somewhere in the continuum between those two ideas.
Yeah, and every year we pass our death day and we don't celebrate it, right?
Well, I don't know. Do you listen to emo music? I think the people that are listening to My Chemical Romance on a regular basis, they probably just celebrate every day that way. Is that way they get it once?
So, but my thinking here is what you're saying is, you know, the tiny little things we do, we don't think about in terms of their consequence, especially when you think about the butterfly effect. But in the same way, when we do pass our death day, we don't know about it. So I think the ignorance in this case comes out of just we don't have the knowledge. We don't know if picking the what kind of muffin, whatever muffin is going to end up killing someone. So I guess we don't worry about these tiny choices because we really can't project out what might happen. I think it's a saner way to live, maybe. I don't know.
For sure. I don't think that we need to walk around with the anxiety of every single choice is life or death. Any wrong choice might generate the next Hitler, that sort of thing.
Right.
But, you know, you think about the practical application of your own family too, right? The choices that you've made up until this point have resulted in the spouse that you've chosen and the 2 kids that you fathered. You know, for me, it's the 3 kids that I've fathered. And any number of small choices could have resulted in us having different kids, not having kids, having more kids.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to trace the future impacts on culture and society, go forward 200 years. If each of my 3 kids has 3 kids and they repeat that cycle, you know, every 20 years or so, 15 years, if one of them's a slut. now you've got a very different looking society and a different looking future because I'm also teaching my kids my ideas and my values, and a certain percentage of those kids will adhere to them and some may rebel from them. But even the act of having children is going to shape the landscape of the future.
That's a lot of flannel, by the way.
Oh yeah. We're and black gloves if this catches on. I don't know. I'll time travel and choose a different color glove.
Right.
If the Riz isn't on fleek, as the kids would say.
All right. So Butterfly Effect. That's another one. That was a movie. I think it had some sequels too. Not as good,
but
The original.
Ashton Kutcher, right?
Oh, that was a great movie.
Yes.
Pretty tough to watch, I think, in some parts.
I don't remember
feels.
too much about that movie except the premise, if I'm being really honest. I do think that the overall premise is kind of the thing that gets locked into everybody's head anyway.
Yeah.
But do you remember kind of?
Oh yeah. I've watched it a few times. Basically, he realizes he has the ability to go back in time in his life and kind of relive a moment of his life. I think it starts by looking at a picture of a certain moment, and then he can do it. But then he figures out he can draw a picture and do it, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So he can control it towards the end. Because he ended up. Are we spoiling an alert? Just spoil alert the top of this. He goes to jail one time. He and I think, if I'm not mistaken, some of these events, this is another where he went back and some of these events occurred and they were terribly confused by him, but it was him, trying to
kind of retcon the future.
Because he could change things, but he only could change things in a moment, and then he had no control over what happened after that when he,
So he didn't get to keep going back to that same moment and getting a mulligan until he got it right.
I think what would happen is he would go back into a moment and he would try something, and then he would jump back into the current time and he'd see what's different.
Okay.
Because he would, I don't think he.
So he got to A/B test this thing and
Yeah.
just knock it into perfection.
Well, maybe. I think he ended up kind of just like if he went back at a certain moment and tried something, he didn't have a whole lot of options, so that either would work or it wouldn't. I don't think he could.
So it was very much just a Boolean choice.
Yeah.
Of yes or no.
I mean, you could go back, try one thing. Oh, that didn't work. Go back, try something different. But it was more like going back to different times, and he was trying to.
So he couldn't time travel to a specific moment. Let me rephrase that. He couldn't time travel to a specific moment of his choice, but he could time travel to a specific moment of significance.
I think so.
And so there was a little determinism in the moments that he could go to, even though he had a little bit of control.
Yeah, I think there had to be key moments in his life, and he was, it really is just a fascinating movie. It's not as much time travel as it, like you're saying. It's this butterfly effect, which is a small thing in a period of time, and then how does that ripple out?
Sure.
As
Well,
adulthood.
let me ask a hot take question here now, and you don't have to give a specific answer here, maybe just yes or no. But would you, if given the opportunity to time travel back to a pivotal moment in your past, would you take the option, knowing that your present day might look radically different?
So I think this was a premise of another show or a movie, but this is a really key thing and easy to answer for parents. Basically, there would be no going back to before I had kids, because like you're saying, I mean, if you go back and change a single thing, I mean, the chances of
having that same kid,
exact same kid, that moment,
yeah,
it's you're rolling the dice there, and I would suspect in a way that you're going to come back and have two totally different
families and
I mean
instant regrets.
Instant, yeah.
Unless you hate your kids, in which case, go for it.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, I guess for me the answer, gosh, I would dare say, the only time travel I'd be willing to do would be to go back and, like, if there's a major incident, a crash or something significant that you could change, and
like a major traumatic event.
Yeah,
maybe you could do it for somebody else.
Maybe
like if you had a friend that lost a kid in a car crash,
yeah,
you could just tell that kid, "Hey, don't get in the car today,"
or
something like that.
Buckle up. Yeah, and maybe okay. Here we go. It's a service now. Your time traveling is a service, and you can go back and fix other people's things, and they can go. You can hire someone to go back and fix things for you. You know what I mean? Like you could do.
So you're never really aware of the kids that you had but didn't get because of somebody else's time travel adventures.
I think I just ruined it, but yeah. No, there's. I think. I think it'd be interesting to say, have a stranger time travel and go fix a tiny little thing in it. I guess butterfly effect is big too, though.
It could be. The only time I would feel comfortable with the notion of even playing in that domain would be if it was one big simulation and you could maybe go back and live a day in your high school self.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that you have today,
Right.
but in a sandbox environment
Right.
where you're not going to change anything, just to see how things would play out. That to me would be maybe the only thing that I would entertain.
It'd be a safer way to do it, and it's like a VR, and it goes in your brain and gets your memories. And
Yeah. Or at least, how you remembered yourself. Which
Right.
I guess everybody's experience would be very different there.
Oh, unless you kind of cobbled them together, right?
Sort of a mass collective.
Yeah.
That could be really scary because they say that in every person that knows you is a different version of yourself, right? And the version of you that you know is you're the only person that knows that guy.
That's true.
So that could be very interesting too. One other time travel-esque movie that I think we would be doing a huge public disservice not to include, and along the nature of the sandbox, is Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people characterize that as a time travel movie necessarily, but if you have knowledge of the outcomes of the day to the degree that you can step sideways and not end up in the rain puddle and catch the falling coffee cup or whatever the little kitschy things that he does along the way, that would be a fascinating day to live.
Yeah.
But I think that I've not read the book, but I've heard that the book takes it to a very unnatural extreme that the movie couldn't. And that is that in the movie, he iterates hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And that causes insanity.
Yeah.
In the book, I think it's thousands of years.
Oh, wow.
And if you could imagine, living the same day in an infinite number of different ways, how bland and mediocre it would be.
Right.
There's never going to be a new song. There's never going to be a different show on television. Right. This was pre-internet, pre-streaming, so his entertainment options were limited anyway.
He's in Pennsylvania.
I mean, you can fly to any number of destinations where the plane's going to take you there in the time it takes within that given day, and you can drive in any radius to have any number of different experiences. But over thousands of years, all that still becomes sort of exhaustive as well. Like, is that a curse or is that a blessing?
I don't know. Sounds like heaven.
Well,
another topic. Wasn't there something to the effect that he bought the insurance from Ned, the annoying friend of his, or he was nice to him, and that was what triggered him out? And it was kind of like something.
I don't remember how it went. Again, the way that lives in my head is the scenario more than the narrative.
Yeah. He was basically trying to get with a girl. I mean,
isn't that the thing that causes all problems?
Right. Well, if I could time travel, I'd probably time travel back 25 minutes ago and pick a better topic. No, I'm kidding. I think this is great.
Well, I don't know if we're sticking to the steel man and arguing format, but you know what I'm going to do is time travel to re-record the intro to this podcast.
Okay. And
you know what? It turns out I can't do it.
Oh, okay. Well,
so we're just going to keep it. Anybody that didn't like it, too bad.
Well played. Okay. So you're saying if we got any feedback to do a different kind of intro, we tried to go back in time and re-record it and failed. So you get what you get.
And you don't throw a fit.
Let's see. Isn't that a great way to end it?
Yep. That'll do it for us this time.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for listening to the Soapbox. Eric, how can people find us?
Well, conveniently, we put everything on our Linktree site. You can go to Linktree, search Soapbox Lex, and you'll find all of our socials there, plus ways to reach us, ways to engage, and some of our original content, so you can see some of the other stuff that we do.